railroads, Americans depended upon waterways for transportation. Cities and settlements were located near rivers, oceans, lakes, and canals. Steam-powered boats were the kings of transportation. America's first steam locomotive, the Sturbridge Lion, was built in England and made its first trial run near Honesdale, Pennsylvania, in August 1829. The railroads created many new occupations for Westerners: engineer, conductor, brakeman, fireman, wiper, telegrapher, switchman, baggageman, yardman, and station agent. The Western railroader quickly became a popular American folk hero, and songs extolling his virtue flourished. Itinerant railroad workers were called boomers. The boomer traveled light, moving from one railroad to another wherever he could find work.
Railroad workers lived daily with dangers from prairie fires, Indian attacks, blizzards, train robbers, derailment, floods, engine explosions, fallen bridges, washouts, and runaway trains. Fatalities were common. In 1888 alone, more than 2,000 railroad workers were killed on the job. While the railroad companies were laying track across the western United States, they built sidings and small stations at intervals. Each location was given a name. The railroad companies sold land to settlers, and the locations became towns. In the 5-year period between 1872 and 1877, tilled acreage in Kansas increased from 7,000 acres to 600,000 acres. In October 1871, the Chicago fire left thousands of people homeless and hungry. Jim Fisk sent his Lightning Express train loaded with food, fuel, and clothing for the needy. This deed changed his image from robber baron to Robin Hood. The following year, Fisk was shot and killed by a business associate named Edward Stokes. After 3 murder trials, the court found Stokes guilty of manslaughter.
Foreman Bob. Yeah, which rail, east or west rail, is your handle? I don't know. That's the one on the old Iowa Coyote. I know it's right now, a couple of ones.
1732 to HP, over.
Go ahead, 1732, over.
Yeah, which hopper car do you want us to pick up in Torrington, over?
I'll go up there. I'll meet you up there. Okay, over.
Roger that.
George Pullman began manufacturing sleeping cars in 1865. He owned Union Pacific stock, and the UP bought a number of his sleeping cars in 1869. The Pullman cars became a railroad institution. Most of the porters on the Pullman cars were African Americans, although a few in the Southwest were Mexican Americans. Pullman porters were traditionally called George, presumably in honor of George Pullman. Pullman porters were proud of their profession. On May 15, 1869, 5 days after the Golden Spike was driven, the railroads began offering daily passenger service from Omaha, Nebraska to Sacramento, California, and a new era had begun. A wagon train could travel 17 miles in a day. The railroad train could average 18 to 22 miles in an hour. It took 4 months to travel the 2,000 miles to Sacramento in a wagon train, and 4 days in a steam train. The buildup of railroad wealth and power continued. The Texas Pacific Railroad received 18 million acres of free land. The Atlantic and Pacific was granted 3 million acres.
The brakeman, or brakie, had one of the more dangerous occupations. Before air brakes came into general use in the 1880s, brakes were hand-operated by turning an iron wheel located on top of the car. If the brakeman tightened one of the brakes too tight, the wheels locked, skidded, and flattened. When this occurred, the brakeman had to pay for the damaged wheel, which cost about a month's pay. A train usually had 2 brakemen. They would start at opposite ends of the train and work toward each other. In dry, wet, or icy weather, the brakies jumped the 1.5-foot space between the tops of the cars, often at high speeds, sometimes in heavy winds, as the cars bounced along the tracks.
That's where the slack came in. And the straightaway is, just put a minimum. And you can just touch it up.